Immortal and Martial Dual Cultivation. Chapter 29. Re-entering Seven-Horn Mountain. Then would you, Pavilion Master, please set the price. Xiao Chen looked at Nan Gongyan and requested indifferently. Nan Gongyan muttered to himself for a while before deciding. This fasting pill, Linglam Pavilion will start the auction for this at 10,000 silver taels per pill. What do you think? Xiao Chen did some calculation in his head. 20 fasting pills would be a starting price of 200,000 silver taels. Following the rules of the auction house, he could obtain 30% of the starting price as a kind of deposit, which was 60,000 silver taels. That should be enough for his short-term usage. In that case, it is settled. These 20 fasting pills will be left here for Linglang Pavilion to auction. Please draft the contract now. Nan Gongyan smiled gently. No hurry. I want to discuss something with you. Out of the 20 fasting pills, I would like to purchase 10 for myself. Of course, I will not take advantage of you. For however much this fasting pill sells at the auction, I will add an additional 2-fold. The deal did not result in any loss for Xiao Chen, so it did not matter to whom he sold it. For these 10 fasting pills, you have to give me 30% of the starting price first, as the rules state. As for the other 10 reserved for you, you will have to give me 3-fold of 30% of the starting price. That will be a total of 130,000 silver taels. Nan Gongyan nodded his head. This is not a problem. According to the normal procedure, Linglang charges a 10% handling fee. I can reduce this to 5% for you. My friend, if you have any more pills you wish to sell, I hope you will continue to patronize our Linglang Pavilion. This was quite an attractive offer. Without a large amount of money to spend on materials and ingredients, it would be difficult to improve as an alchemist. It would therefore be a wise move to partner with Linglang Pavilion. After signing the contract and receiving the money, Xiao Chen immediately left Linglang Pavilion. Hu Lao took out the 10 fasting pills and placed them in another jade bottle before passing them to Nan Gongyan. Pavilion Master, can we directly place this into the catalogue? Nan Gongyan shook his head. Not yet. Find a person to test its effects on first, in case we make a mistake. Hu Lao was startled in his heart. So, even the Pavilion Master was unable to verify the effects of this pill as well. Xiao Chen avoided attracting anyone's attention by virtue of living through the back door of Linglang Pavilion. He searched for an isolated area and immediately changed his getup. Holding the banknotes, he snickered in a silly manner. This was the first chunk of money that he had earned by himself, so he felt very excited. Going to the herb store, he purchased 100 sets of ingredients for each of both the pills he intended to refine. After this, he still had quite a lot of money. Giving it some more thought, he bought some things that girls would like, such as makeup or accessories. He purchased these to give to Pao Er and Xiao Yulan. After purchasing everything, he ended up carrying tens of packages of various sizes. It was incredibly inconvenient, but this merely further motivated him to refine a spatial storage treasure. However, in order to do this, he had to cultivate the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation to the second layer first. Only by achieving that would he have met the basic requirement to forge equipment. His only option now was to spend a small sum of money to hire a horse carriage. Xiao Chen threw a banknote with a hefty amount ascribed to it at the owner of a horse carriage, who immediately scampered off and left his horse carriage. It feels great to be rich, Xiao Chen sighed in his heart. After placing all of his goods on the horse carriage, Xiao Chen felt much more at ease. The horses drawing the carriages in this world were much more docile than the ones on Earth. Xiao Chen gave driving it a try and gradually figured out the trick behind it. As he drove the carriage out of the city gates, the number of people on the road started to decrease until he could no longer see anyone save the occasional passing traveller. Xiao Chen, who had earned such a large sum of money for the first time in his life, was at present in a very good mood. He started to sing a nonsensical song that he had made up on the spot in a tone-deaf manner. The weather today is very sunny, and the scene is great, great scenery. The butterflies are busy, and as are the bees. The clattering of the horse hooves. I am rich, rich. There's a Nokia in my left hand and a Motorola in my right. Most of the things he sang were nonsensical, as he could not remember the lyrics to any song whatsoever. Ever since he had come to this world, this was the first time he had felt this relaxed. As there were no one on the road, no one would hear his tone-deaf singing. So, he sang happily and without restraint. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, a bell-like laughter emerged from the roof of the horse carriage. It was like the tinkling of a wind chime as it moved in the wind. Who is it? Xiao Chen hurriedly stopped singing and shouted sternly. He had been too careless. For how long had this individual been following him? He couldn't actually sense them. Drawing the lunar shadow that he had placed on his back, he put down the horse reins and leapt up gently, somersaulting as he hacked towards the direction of the sound. Feng Feixue, who was on the roof, gently laughed as she avoided Xiao Chen's saber with incredibly soft movements. She somersaulted twice in the air before gracefully landing on the ground. Who knew that young Master Xiao was so talented? Aside from being able to refine medicine, he is able to sing as well. When Xiao Chen saw the smooth and fair Feng Feixue dressed in men's clothing on the roof, he felt incredibly embarrassed. It was similar to that feeling he had once experienced when he inevitably began singing aloud in an internet cafe while wearing headphones. Shifting the lunar shadow, Xiao Chen smiled. I did not expect it to be Miss Feng. I did not expect such a fairy-like person to be following me, doing these kinds of sneaky things. Feng Feixue, you have disappointed me. After saying this, he even acted as though it was a serious matter and shook his head. Feng Feixue smiled gently. I did not follow you sneakily. I have been on the roof of your horse carriage even before you left the city gates. To think that not only are you not grateful to the person who sold you your medical quadrant, you even pulled out your saber to try and injure me. Young Master Xiao, I am so disappointed in you too. After saying that, she imitated Xiao Chen and shook her head too. This time, when he met with Feng Feixue, Xiao Chen did not feel that uneasy feeling he had when he was in the regretful iron the last time. Furthermore, he could not feel any evil intentions coming from Feng Feixue, so he was quite relaxed. Seeing the way Feng Feixue shook her head, Xiao Chen could not help but laugh. He jumped down from the top of the horse carriage and took out a hairpin from among his stash. Then, he tossed it at Feng Feixue before he rode onwards without pausing. Miss Feng, regardless of your intentions in following me, I am going home now. Consider this hairpin as a thank you gift for selling me the medicinal quadrant. Feng Feixue grabbed the hairpin out of the air and looked at the horse carriage galloping off into the distance. She shook her head. Idiot! Since when have you seen me use a hairpin? Indeed, the Feng Feixue who frequently dressed up as a male did not have much use for a hairpin that is normally used by a girl. Perhaps this was done intentionally by Xiao Chen, or perhaps it was unintentional. However, he had already made it quite far into the distance, so it was too late to question him about it. Feng Feixue shook her head and eventually turned around to return. By the time Xiao Chen made it back to the Xiao residence, it was already noon. His trip this time had taken the entire morning. When he drove the horse carriage to his tiny courtyard, Xiao Chen saw Bao tidying up the mess he had created in the front yard. Jumping off the horse carriage and looking at Bao's frail body, Xiao Chen felt a sense of pity. He called Bao over with his hand. "Put what you're doing aside for now and help me move these things." Bao immediately stopped what she was doing and ran over to him. Although Xiao Chen had told her to help him, he still had to carry the larger packages himself. As they were moving the things, Bao looked strangely at a large pile of accessories in the horse carriage. She picked up these things and carried them to Xiao Chen's room, feeling very puzzled. Seeing the thing in Bao's hand, Xiao Chen smiled. "I brought this for you. Pick out a few for yourself, but be sure to leave me some, as I still have to give a few to my friends." Bao felt warmth spread in her heart. She had not expected these things to be brought for her. She was just a maid, so why did a young master buy things for her? Could it be... Thinking of those shameless things, Bao blushed again. She lowered her head and simply picked out a few clothes and head accessories, quickly running away shortly. Xiao Chen was puzzled at this. Were the things that he had bought inadequate? Would girls not enjoy them? After all, this was the first time he had ever purchased anything for a girl. In the following days, Xiao Chen anxiously refined the Essence Nurturing Pill and Qi Returning Pill. He would refine pills until he exhausted all of his essence and become too mentally exhausted before resting. On the first day of refining, he had a ridiculously poor rate of success. Out of 10 refinements, he would only succeed in 3. As he became more familiar with the process, his success rate began to gradually increase. However, no matter how hard he tried, this success rate never came close to his refinement rate of the fasting pill. Xiao Chen knew that this had something to do with his ability as an alchemist. When his abilities were insufficient, it was normal for him to have a high failure rate for pills with higher difficulties. He could not rush it, and could only slowly accumulate experience to raise his ability as an alchemist. After a week, Xiao Chen had completely used up all of the medicinal ingredients he had purchased. He managed to refine 50 Essence Nurturing Pills and 70 Qi Returning Pills in this time frame. Evidently, he had experienced higher returns with the Qi Returning Pill. In this week of non-stop refining, he grew more adept at controlling the Purple Thunder through fire. His cultivation of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation had reached the peak of the first layer as a bonus. What gave Xiao Chen the most joy was that the green spear in his sea of consciousness could now penetrate into the medicinal cauldron and allow him to clearly see the state of the flames and medicinal liquid in the cauldron. It was a pity that he could not control this phenomenon. Sometimes it happened, sometimes it did not. If it could be controlled, then his success rate pertaining to pill refining would increase dramatically. At this moment, there were only about 4 more months to the promise of 10 years. The urgency in Xiao Chen's heart increased as the days go by. It was about time for him to enter Seven Horn Mountain for more bitter training. Early in the morning, Xiao Chen packed the bottles of Qi Returning Pills and Essence Nurturing Pills. He equipped Lunar Shadow on his back and made some other simple preparations before he prepared to leave. He also brought along the fasting pills that he had refined for the sake of this cultivating session. "Young master, I have brought the washing liquid. Can I come in?" Bao's voice came in from outside the door once again. Xiao Chen revealed a smile on his face. He had not stepped out of his room for the past week. Everything he ate and drank was specially prepared and brought to him by Bao, creating an ideal environment for alchemy. This made him feel quite grateful to her. After he opened the door, Xiao Chen received the wash basin. After washing his face, he told Pao Er, who was tidying his bed up, "I am about to start my secluded beater training from tomorrow on. Remember to stay here and look after my courtyard." Beater training. This meant that he would be leaving for a long time. Pao Er felt a sense of loss as she wordlessly answered Xiao Chen, continuing to tidy the bed up. Xiao Chen stepped out of the doors. Before he left, he looked at Pao Er's figure and smiled warmly before leaving. The morning sunlight shone down on the youth's face. The light felt really warm, filling him with fighting spirit. The next time he came back, not only would his Purple Thunder Divine Incantation be in the second layer, but his own cultivation realm would be media-grade martial disciple. Xiao Chen made this solemn oath in his heart.